Okay, in this video I'm going to be looking at the new camera control board from Ready to Fly Quads. You may have seen some of the newer flight controllers coming out, like the CL Racing F4S, with a feature called camera control. Does this mean you can change your camera angle mid-flight? No. It simply means you can access your camera's onboard camera settings through your flight controller and your radio. So you can change settings like the OSD, the black and white mode, or image/sensor related settings through your radio instead of the provided dongle like this or this. It's simply a convenience thing. So for all of us with builds using flight controllers that don't have this feature, Ready to Fly Quads has released a tiny little wire harness board for $1.99 that allows you to add the same type of functionality to any flight controller, provided you have an extra PWM motor output, an extra timer, or LED port that's not already being used. Even though you're controlling the camera settings through the flight controller, this does not use the flight controller's OSD. The flight controller does not need OSD. It's only simulating the button clicks of the joystick using your radio. There are also some safeguards in place to make sure you don't actually end up with your OSD for your camera and the OSD for the flight controller open at the same time, which could be weird. So is it worth installing? This past weekend, I was down in Cincinnati, Ohio, racing with Cincinnati Quad Racers. This is essentially an old Jim Beam factory with all the windows blacked out, and the only lighting that's provided is coming from the LED gates themselves. This requires particular settings on the image sensor to get the best picture. So let me show you a video. Here I was standing out in the warehouse adjusting settings with the joystick, really wishing I had already taken the time to set this camera control adapter up. It required me to pop open the top off all of my quads, connect the little joystick to the back of the camera, and then basically stand out there with my goggles on trying to hold all this stuff in place, going through the controls, trying to set up the cameras for all of my quads. After this weekend, I'm totally sold on the adapter. Whether you're adding it to an existing build or building new, you're talking about less than 5 minutes of work to add the adapter and save yourself at least 5 minutes of work down the road trying to find your joystick and changing the settings. To get it set up, it's 2 very simple steps, and I'm going to walk you through those. First, I'm going to show you how to get it wired up, and then second, I'm going to show you how to run the commands in the CLI to map the camera controls to an output.
The way this is meant to be hooked up is on one side of the board, you have your camera control portion of things. Okay, and then on the other side of the board, you have your flight controller side. So it's going to be labeled like camera PWM, and on this side, you'll have camera controller. The power and the ground that power your camera are basically just passed through the board. You're only hooking them up here to make it a clean build. You can just as well bypass these for power and ground, and then only hook up these 2 wires to this board. And then you'll notice your video wire is going to just skip right on past that board. It's not going to be included. It's interesting they didn't include that in the pass-through as well, considering they threw power and ground in there, but that's just how it is. If you're adding this to an existing build, I'd suggest skipping the power and ground, leave those hooked up exactly how you have them today, and just simply hook up these 2 new wires. You'll probably already have your OSD wire hooked up. It's probably cut off, dangling in your board, or taped off. Go ahead and just connect another wire to that, or connect to this board here, and then run the other wire to either your LED strip or motor 5, 6, 7, 8, or I guess it works on a timer as well. I'm not sure about that, but I know it works on LED strip and I know it works on motor.
So if you're installing this on a build that's already done and you just want to add this functionality, it's kind of a pain in the ass to have to cut your power and your ground wires and reroute them through this board. Don't do that. Just leave those exactly as they are today, and then don't even need to cut anything. Just attach the camera control wire that you run to your flight controller. Mine's yellow here. It runs right to here, which I'm running to my LED strip, and then run the other end to the positive pin for the camera OSD. And then you'll notice that I have this other floating wire that's not even used. This is actually the ground wire. So normally your joystick wire would have a ground and a positive, and you're not going to end up needing to use the ground. I originally had that wired up as well to the ground, so I had both grounds coming here, and realized that it's pointless. You don't need it. You might as well just rip that out and not even use it, and just run your positive lead to the camera control side, CTRL or CRL, whatever controller, and then the camera, the other side, which is camera PWM, run that to your flight control board, and that can run to either your LED strip or a motor that you're not using. So if your flight controller has motors like 1 through 8 or 1 through 6. You can use those extra motors holes that are not used and map those resources as a camera controller.
Okay, so you're going to plug your quad into your laptop, and you're going to open up Betaflight, and you're going to connect to it. All right, and then we're going to go down to the CLI. Now, you can type it's resource, and it's going to show you all of the resources that your flight controller has to offer. So these are basically all of the inputs on your flight controller. So you have your motor inputs, you have some serial stuff, so your all of your UARTs down here, 1, 3, and 6, and then like other stuff like barometer and current sensor and things like that. To start, I would copy this whole thing and save it to a text file. That way, if you screw anything up, you can reset it back. What you're going to do is you're going to look for the place that you wired up your camera controller wire. In my case, I did that was LED strip. So there was a resource on here called LED strip. But if you did it to say we're going to wire this up to motor 5. So you had a motor 5 output somewhere on your flight controller, and you wired this camera controller up to motor 5. You would type resource motor 5 none. And what that does is it's going to take resource motor 5 and remove it from this address A01. So you need to copy that out. So copy A01 to the text file. And you're going to do motor motor 5 none. Resource is now freed up. Type resource again. You see that motor 5 is now gone, and that A05 is now available. And then you're going to type resource camera control 1, and then the 3-digit or 3 alphanumeric code for the resource where you have this wired up. So if it was motor 5 was A05, you would type A05 there and save. I'm not going to do that because I've already set resource camera control into BO6, which was my LED strip, which is where I soldered my camera PWM cable to. Once you're done with that, you're going to go ahead and type save. If we go back and look at that, we should see that we have a resource camera control 1. And we should see that the camera control 1 resource is set up correctly, pointed at the place that we have our wire soldered to. If things aren't working for you, there's a number of different configuration options you can use. So if you look here, we have a camera control reference voltage, camera control key delay. This is probably what I could use to prevent my my controller from sending a bunch of writes when I press write one time. I imagine I just need to increase this to a higher number of milliseconds to fix that. And then you have camera control internal resistance. I'll be honest, I didn't play with any of these. Mine worked out of the box on the Runcam Micro V2. But you may need to adjust some of these things if you're having some wonky experience when trying to control your camera OSD with your radio.
All right, I'm going to show you how to interact with the menu now that you have the camera controller hooked up. You're going to move the throttle up to 50%, and then you're going to bump it right. That's going to get you into the menu. Throttle right is going to be your click, and this is going to be your up, down, left, right. So if I want to go to exposure, we'll go right stick. Now I can come through here. I can change the AGC settings. And you'll notice it flips through 2 menu options if I press it slowly. And that's just because it's kind of putting in right instead of just one right. So you need to just kind of be quick about your stick movements. And then return won't be right stick, but it'll be left because that's your enter, that's your click button. And then if you want to, so if we exit this menu, so you're going to be able to just change all your settings through here. And if you wanted to get into the other menu, like for light tracks and different pre-settings, you're just going to, before not going into the menu, you're just going to hold the right stick to the right. And you can see I'm at light tracks, outdoor, indoor, cloudy, twilight, there you go, personal. And then I think up gets you into your OSD menu, which I don't want to mess with. That's pretty much all you need to do. Once you have this set up, you can basically throw that old joystick away and just do it all through your radio. I'm going to be giving one of these away, so if you'd like one, please subscribe, click the thumbs up, and drop me a comment below. After about a week, I'll randomly select somebody and ship it to them free of charge. If this video helped you, please give me a thumbs up and let me know in the comments below. If you enjoy tutorial drone videos, please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.